We are those guys. Hey, if you recognize these voices or these faces, I'm Alex Hardy. He's Nick Ferguson. It's been a minute. I'll get into it briefly, but it's been too long. Nick Ferguson, how are you, my man?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to see that you are doing
Look, you got small kids at the house. Whatever germs they bring home from school, they knock you out. Getting back to back sicknesses like, look, you didn't want to hear me when my voice is all jacked up at an even lower register. And physically, I just wasn't up for it. You know what, really, Nick, what I was trying to get into, and let's just dive right into Thursday Night Football because we are coming to you, if you're listening to this, right after the New England Patriots beat their division rival Jets. The final score 27-14 to kick off week 11. I honestly was just thinking, let's just wait until the Patriots lose. 8 straight wins, Nick. I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. How do you see it?
well. Hold on. I know.
I forgot my Patriots gear. I don't know if you could tell.
Well, I can see the
I'm
Patriots.
jacked up for my Patriots.
Yeah, I can see the Patriots football right there over your shoulder, but let's not fanboy out too much. Yeah, they're on somewhat of a winning streak, and
Somewhat. Okay.
somewhat
Somewhat.
of a winning streak. And I will have to say this: Drake May looks well in that offense with Josh McDaniels. And you got to think, if you are Mac Jones, you got to be thinking, okay, well, what happened to me? Why didn't they do this for me? But Mike Vrabel has come in and shown that he can kind of get this organization up and running. And there was a couple of plays tonight that I was watching from Drake May that I was just like, okay, well, those are NFL type of throws. Those are NFL type of plays. And for me, when a quarterback is able to make plays, not just in the shotgun, but when he's able to make the right play and the right read, pulling away from the center position, because that's a lot of footwork. That's a lot of timing that we're seeing with Dre May. And what I said watching one of the plays where it was a play action play, you faked it to Trevion Henderson, found Stephon Diggs down the field. I was like, that
Yep.
footwork was like butter.
Yep.
And me being a defensive player and the place where we don't really see our quarterback under center that much here in Denver, I can really appreciate the kind of work they put in with Drake May.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, we can unpack just what a mess it was in the final years of the Bill Belichick head coaching regime. You know, the Josh McDaniels of the world. They weren't by his side anymore. So Matt Patricia calling an offense, sure, let's go for it. And kudos to Mac Jones. We may get to the Niners, who just earlier today announced that Brock Purdy was back, but Mac Jones is under contract, getting some guaranteed money, and I think things turned out all right for him, considering he wound up with a guy like Kyle Shanahan. As for Drake May, I can only go on for so much because better take it from a professional such as yourself, Nick Ferguson, an unbiased opinion such as yourself, Nick Ferguson, but really Drake May. And again, from a fantasy standpoint, his lowest output, just the one passing touchdown, leaning on Trevion Henderson in the red zone. We'll get to having a multiple offense and how beneficial it was, granted, against a depleted Jets defense that traded their two best players this past trade deadline. But Drake May playing in and out of structure. You mentioned the buttery footwork. There was also that pass on the sideline where he kind of faked, like he approached the line of scrimmage like he was going to run. That drew the Jets defenders off of Stephon Diggs, able to free him up and get a big chunk, I think a 22-yard completion down the field. You see the threat that he has with his legs, but he's not relying on his legs. He wants to throw from the pocket, and he wants to play in structure too. But as we've learned, and certainly as he learned as a rookie behind one of the most porous offensive lines, he's learned to play when he's had to move quickly and when he has to progress through his reads maybe faster than expected. So the fact that he has some weapons that are coming out for him, look, we saw Kyle Williams, the third round rookie, step up last week. We didn't see so much of that, but Steph Diggs is available for you. 9 catches. Hunter Henry was a big target as well. But leaning on that running game, and look, a lot of it has to do with the Jets not having a first down until it seemed like the second half after that opening drive, but they were able to control the time of possession. They were able to run effortlessly. Not any big gainers like we saw with Trevion Henderson a week ago, but they just finally gave him the rock, allowed him to tote it, and they were comfortable with him in the red area as well, which was a big advancement, for the rookie out of Ohio State.
Well, you mentioned something about playing in structure, and so many times you get offensive coordinators who are hell bent on forcing their guy to play within structure. But I do feel as though there's room to play out of structure as well,
Right.
because teams are going to create pressure. There's going to be an uneven penetration on the quarterback, and he's going to have to make a decision. Do I listen to the coach who is forcing me to play within structure? Or I look to use my abilities to play outside of structure, get on
Right.
the edge, and extend the play. To me, it's all about allowing these quarterbacks to be who they are and extend the play. And if for some reason you need to reel them back in, you have the capabilities of doing that. But for me, as a defensive player, the most dangerous guy is a guy who can play in structure, but he can kill you out of structure as well.
Completely balanced on both ends of the field, and he played under pressure. I mean, Quinnen Williams is gone, Sauce Gardner gone, but Quincy Williams, who I guess was demoted, still had a big effort in the pass rush, and it's I think the knock on this 8-game winning streak is outside of Buffalo and Tampa a week ago, not necessarily a murderer's row as far as that Patriots schedule. And they do get the Jets again, and they do get, the Dolphins again. It's not necessarily the scariest thing because, right, they go at Cincy against the Giants at home. They get the Bills at home, at Baltimore, at the Jets, and then home against the Dolphins. So, look, we were looking at a Bucks game. We were looking at a potential trap game like this one on the short week, and they've taken care of business. They're in the driver's seat right now, not only for the AFC East, but for the AFC conference as well. So as we kind of open things up, and we will get to these other Week 11 matchups because there are some, I'd say, playoff ramifications between some of these matchups, especially in the NFC. But looking at the AFC picture, you know, there are 3 teams that have 2 losses, including your Denver Broncos, that are all kind of vying for that top seed. But that'll be kind of, look, we're at week 11. This is when these conversations start to happen. That matchup going into Buffalo is huge for the Patriots because they essentially now have a 3-game lead over the AFC East. And that's really something that Denver should be looking forward to when we talk about that Chiefs game. But quickly, I'd be remiss not to talk about the New York Jets, who clearly, based on their activity at the trade deadline, acquiring 3 first-round picks over the next 2 NFL drafts, particularly the emphasis on the 2027 NFL draft. The Jets' outlook here, Nick, is this purely to go quarterback hunting next year? I mean, Justin Fields is under contract with guaranteed money and has essentially been an abject failure as a passer, but the Jets, I can't ask you how to fix them in 90 seconds, but Nick, take as much time as you need. What is the point of emphasis for fixing this Jets team? Because they got a quarterback under contract, and they've got your guy, Aaron Glenn, who we had so much respect and admiration for, who, frankly, I think has had an even worse performance at the press conference than he has coaching the sidelines.
Well, I'll say this: the Jets have put themselves in a great position in 2026, but more importantly, in 2027. And when you look at the fact that the money that they paid, Justin Fields and being guaranteed money, I mean, if you're the Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, you're saying, well, we got off like a bunch of thieves because when you look at the situation that the Falcons find themselves in, how much guaranteed money that they gave
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins. I mean, to me, it's all relative. Now well, not the Broncos, but the Jets will have to go out and find themselves a quarterback of the future. In the meantime, you can
right.
operate with Justin Fields just enough to get by because right now they're in the building stage, right? They have done the DIY kind of situation where they've taken all the sheetrock down, they've stripped everything's down to the studs. Now they're in the kind of redesign phase. What that looks like, we really don't know, and that's a lot of that is based on some of these prospects that are coming out in 2026, but it gives the Jets
Hmm.
organization kind of draft capital to maneuver, to move up and down the draft, to
Yes.
look at other rosters and say, well, we need this particular guy, we need those guys to add to our roster. And now they have a little more draft capital to kind of maneuver, but they're in a good spot right now. But now here's where the rubber meets the road. And we've seen this before in the NFL where teams have a multitude of first round picks, but they don't hit on those picks as
Mm-hmm.
far as drafting is concerned. They don't hit on those picks as far as developing that talent. They don't hit on those picks as far as surrounding them with adequate talent. So it's going to be real important. And I would say this because I know everyone has been talking about, Arch Manning and Texas is playing better
Mm-hmm.
football now than they did at the very beginning. Wouldn't it be really interesting if somehow a Manning ended up in New York, not named with the Giants,
I,
but with the Jets?
you know,
I'm just
I look, that sounds great, but I just, from what I've seen from him at Texas, uh he like the bubbles kind of burst, right? He was a consensus top guy and he's only gotten worse. He's still got another year. He's going to, according to Arch himself, finish his collegiate career, so there's nowhere to go but up. But if you stop things right now and say, where does Arch Manning go? He may be the third or the fourth or the fifth quarterback. We just don't know, right? We don't know how he tests in the underwear Olympics or how he interviews or what kind of reference, either of his unks or his pop or grandpop, could put in for him. But you just, right. There's no Arch Madness anymore. It's just not to the same extent, for many of the same reasons that Tank for Tua or, all these other campaigns for certain quarterbacks, even Suck for Luck didn't work out for these teams long term. And it is classic New York Jets, right? When they have opportunities to have multiple first round picks, Zach Wilson, Elijah Vera Tucker, not quite. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, and even Brees Hall, 36 overall. Sauce was just traded 3 seasons later. Like, this team has been able to stockpile picks, and they've been able to take shots at quarterbacks in the top 3. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Zach Wilson. Even recently, there's no level of confidence that I have in the Jets organization. Again, it's a lot on your guy, Aaron Glenn and Muji, who, look, they're both in their first year in these positions, and we've decided that, yes, these are the guys running the ship, and they're ultimately going to be at the helm, so we believe, when the team has this arsenal of picks on the way. And it could be all moot, right? It's similar results under Woody Johnson, under that ownership group that at this point in time is more concerned about filing a lawsuit against the NFLPA for saying mean things about him in the players' report cards over the summer than actually winning football games, right? Because that's what came out before this game tonight, was that reportedly Woody Johnson leading the charge with the NFL filing a lawsuit against the NFLPA because of those report cards that come out over the summer. And we just kind of clown, how some organizations run themselves, like the Cincinnati Bengals or the New York Jets. Give the ownership an F, and all of a sudden, it's the third time in the last 2.5 years that this guy is so concerned about mean things the NFLPA, his players, are saying about him.
Well, you know what? Here's what I want to say about that. If players are constantly evaluating on a 24-hour cycle, why is it that players can't evaluate the organizations that they work for?
Right?
And it's almost like living with a slumlord, if you will. I mean, you mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals, and they have been known historically to be one of the more cheap, or better yet, let me be more PC, cost-effective teams
Cost effective, yes.
in the NFL. I think it's par for the course. Why can't players sit out there and go through the idea of writing out how they look at their team? Because, I mean, how you're being treated really impacts how you play for the organization. If after the game there's no room where my family can actually go or gather, and the organization is kind of cost cutting and knowing
Hmm.
as though they're making billions of dollars, what does that say to me as a player? You only care about me to a certain degree. When you tell me, well, hey, you put your arm around me and say, well, we're family, man. I need you to go out there and play injured and hurt, but let alone you can't give us better quality, I guess, things around the team as far as
Right. Or the
salaries and
facility
all those
itself. Like, where am I
amenities.
going to
Yeah.
rehab this injury? And the facility itself is less than, what it's not the world class standard that expected to play on the field.
Yeah, then you go TB12 on them.
the the Alex Guerrero, of
You
each and
have
every
to.
team.
I mean,
Yes.
come on, man. Now I understand why Tom had TB12, and I understand why so many players actually decided to partake in the TB12. Because if you're getting better treatment with TB12 and what he's doing than you getting at the team facility, that says a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the criticisms about the Patriots in the recent report card was, those facilities, which under Mike Vrabel, sweeping overhaul. So look, the fact that the New England Patriots are back to full on relevancy and as of, Thursday, November 13th, sit first overall in the AFC, not the AFC East, the entire AFC. So
Uh,
let's look at the rest of week 11, I should say. No better place to go than their division rival Buffalo Bills, who have owned the AFC East over the last half dozen years. They're at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just suffered that loss at home to New England. I think a huge thing for Tampa Bay as they look to travel up north. Luke Goedeke is back on that offensive line. Like they still, have lost Cody Mock. They're playing with, a banged up Tristan Wirfs. It's been rough, and Baker's just always kind of had this way to pull a rabbit out of his hat. And keep the Buccaneers afloat. And it's not just the offensive line, right? Mike Evans possibly gone for the season. We've barely seen Chris Godwin. Bucky Irving returning to practice, possibly, but, technically doubtful if you ask your guy Todd Bowles. This is a team that is playing well above their weight. And Buffalo, meanwhile, ever since that week 1 come from behind victory against the Baltimore Ravens, they've just been kind of lost, punctuated with that loss at home to New England. They sputtered against the Falcons, and after that exciting 28-21 victory over Kansas City, all right, the Bills are back. They can take care of their business. They get absolutely slapped around by the Miami Dolphins of all teams. I mean, your guy, Mike McDaniel, just riding the whip around Elbow Room in downtown Miami, like just he's got the rollie hanging out the window, just telling Buffalo fans, tell me, you know, tell me something I don't know already. Like, I can't figure out this Buffalo Bills team, but you'd think at home against a banged up Buccaneers team, like the rubber has to meet the road. The defense needs to step up. That offense needs to play with more consistency. I'm just completely lost on where Buffalo is, if they're actually competing for the AFC East or the top of the AFC, or if they're one and done as a wild card team in the postseason.
Well, I look at the Buffalo Bills as skim milk right now. And the reason I call them skim milk because they've kind of lost the meat of what they do, that fat that we always lean on when we watch them. And that was the execution from the quarterback position.
Hmm.
We haven't really seen that. They got two extraordinary tight ends and Dawson Knox and Kincaid. And I mean, these guys, you need to find ways to get them more involved. But
Right.
I did not expect for the Bills to go to Miami and lose the way they did. Even my dude, Anthony Weaver, who's the defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, my former Texans teammate,
Mhm.
I sent him a screenshot of his reaction when the score was like 16-0, and he and Mike McDaniels were chest bumping. I was like, man, I was fired up seeing you guys kind of get to that point because Miami has been under heavy scrutiny
Yeah.
themselves. But one thing we
Right.
know,
They fired Chris Greer, the general
yeah,
manager.
exactly. And the Buffalo Bills came into the season with high praise, started the season with high praise, like you mentioned, beating Baltimore, beating Kansas City, but it just seemed as though this Bills team, once again, I'm calling them skim milk, is that they're just a regular season team.
Hmm.
And maybe we have to come to grips with, you know what? That's the only thing that they will ever become is a regular season team. And that's pretty much their ceiling, beating Kansas City in the regular season, but in the postseason, they're an entirely different team.
You know, Josh Allen's criticism is deserved, right? I mean, coming off of the MVP and how he was able to solidify a weak running game with James Cook had been such a focal point, finally getting the end zone or the red zone at work, and they were putting up points in bunches and just couldn't seem to do it. And yet I have to point to the defense and the overall organizational structure. Like Brennan Bean, I don't think is criticized enough for how many resources he allocates into the defense, right? You spend a first round pick. I do like Maxwell Harrison, I really do. But like typically year in and year out, they spend their top 60 draft capital on defensive players and yet still need to supplement with expensive defensive players in the free agency market. It's Joey Bosa this year. It's Von Miller in the past. It's spending money after spending first round picks on the defensive line and the secondary and just not being able to adequately put enough guys back there to stop a nosebleed. I mean, it's one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and Josh Allen, to his credit, previously was able to keep opposing offenses off the field, extending drives, keeping plays moving, but it just hasn't been the case, and it's been an absolute backbreaker for the defense. So it's really caused quite a problem that I think Tampa could exploit based on how Baker plays, and they've been effective in the running game despite the injury to Bucky Irving. I mean, Rashad White and Sean Tucker have held their own in a split backfield the last few weeks, but if they can get some of those weapons back, even if it's not Buffalo, I mean, Tampa is comfortable in that NFC South. So I'm really curious to see if it really is time for Tampa to avenge, that bad loss coming off the bye against New England and to really prove that Buffalo may not even be that regular season team you think they are.
Well, right now, when you think about the Buffalo Bills, I call them skim milk. I also call them paper tigers.
Yeah.
That's where they are right now.
Yeah.
And you have to go out there and you have to prove, and they have to find a way to pick themselves up. And this is going to be a great game because both teams are 6-3. Both are coming off of losses, but I still give the advantage to Josh Allen and the Buffalo
Mm.
Bills because they have more offensive weapons. Like you mentioned, Bucky
Uh,
Irvin is coming off of injury, and I mean you're missing one of your better wide receivers. So for me, I got to lean on the much larger quarterback slash running back
sure.
and and Josh Allen and believe that that team can make the most offensive plays with
Hmm.
their quarterback and their running back.
We'll see. I may lean the other way. Just Buffalo's going to have a tough time getting the run going up against Vita Vea and that defensive front for Tampa. I think of, all of the units, that Buccaneers defensive unit has the overall advantage for me. Plus, Buffalo's banged up too. Still haven't seen again. It's only Thursday. Haven't seen Dalton Kincaid play. I have seen Keon Coleman practice and play, and I don't like what I see there. So we'll just leave it to, learning a lot about really who belongs in the top of their respective conference based on that one. And then as for the rest of week 11, Nick, there's a lot of great divisional matchups. I think none better than Seattle and LA, but I'll placate to the former Denver Bronco. What about hosting Kansas City, 8-2 Denver Broncos, 5-4 Kansas City Chiefs? We've either got one game of separation within the AFC West, or Denver can really extend this thing out to 3 games over Kansas City, and we'll hit on the Chargers as well, who have Jacksonville this weekend.
I think the Broncos are trying to extend that lead and for the first time in a long time, dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs as winning the AFC West and make it somewhat of a duel between them and the LA Chargers, which we'll get to in a second, which makes that Jacksonville game rather
I like
interesting.
it. I
Yeah,
like it.
yes. And I'll say Kansas City right now, they're thinking this way. Like, look, they're okay with forfeiting the AFC West title if that means they get into the playoffs and make a run, which they are capable of doing. Now, this will look a lot different than what we've seen from the Kansas City teams in the past because no AFC title, the
Mhm.
potential of going on the road in a wild card game, and you have to figure that they like their chances because they figure as though they're getting healthy at the right time. Their only difficulty that I see is the inability to run the ball at a high consistency. So
Right.
it's going to make the game on Sunday really interesting.
These teams in a way do kind of mirror each other. Like they look to take big shots offensively and they neither really can run the football. And then defensively, they've prided themselves on rushing the passer. I mean, nobody's been better than Denver, I think, ever, as far as getting after the quarterback for the first 10 games of the year. Meanwhile, like they have very little consistency. Sean Payton loves to take shots. Bo Nix, playing out of shotgun. I think you mentioned that much earlier when we started the show. So I really think that despite the records, you're essentially looking at a coin flip. Denver obviously getting the advantage. Mile High being the best home field advantage in all of the NFL. Meanwhile, like Kansas City is back. They're coming off of a bye week and they're healthy with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice on the field. The first round rookie Josh Simmons at left tackle is back and where he belongs. So I'm curious. While Denver is dealing with injuries, Kansas City is getting healthy. We still haven't seen Pat Surtain. Is RJ Harvey no longer going to be the Joker? Is he going to be the primary back with J.K. Dobbins out there? And then, of course, I think the biggest story of the week in Denver was, Alex Singleton discovering cancer and battling through that as well.
Yeah, that was tough for Alex. I actually saw him today and I just embraced him and just wished him, much success in his recovery and just trying to get back to ball. But the most important thing for him right now is just trying to make sure that he gets healthy. But I thought it was really interesting that he found out, he knew about it before he played that Thursday night game, still
Mhm.
pushed through it, and I understand why. He could have sat home and sat out and just had everything about his situation constantly pressing him and on his mind. But he just felt, you know what, going out there being with my guys would definitely allow me to kind of ease the pressure off of my physical situation. But the Broncos defense, man, they've been playing, insanely for the past couple of weeks. And with him being out, that's going to force Justin Stronard into the lineup. And Stronard has kind of made his way and kind of changed his position from being a guy that was a late round draft choice out of Wake Forest, who was presumed as being just a special teams guy. Now he's over the past 2 years, due to certain situations with
Yep.
Alex, he's received a lot of playing time. So he has an opportunity to play himself into a major cash day come 2026. But this game is going to be anything but easy for the Denver Broncos, regardless of the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are 5-4. You have to go out there and you have to take the game from them. They're not going to let you just
Yep.
kind of easily kind of take the scepter from their hands. So you're going to have to really beat them down early and often to just kind of let them know, like, you know what? You dominated this block before. Now we own the block. And Sean Payton, the only way that he can claim that he is now in charge of the AFC West, he's got to thank, one Vance Joseph for making that possible.
Am I wrong to say that based on how this team plays, specifically the Broncos offense, how often they have either explosive plays or three and out drives, does that kind of hurt them because the goal when playing Kansas City is to keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands? And that's something that the Broncos have really struggled to do. I'm not just saying from the perspective of they've let lesser teams hang around, they kind of play with their food, whether it's the Jets, the Giants, but they either score in a hurry or they get off the field quickly in a three and out situation. Is that just a bad recipe when facing a Patrick Mahomes led Kansas City Chiefs?
Hell, that's a bad recipe when you face anyone. I mean, we saw last Thursday even facing Chino Pete Carroll and the Las Vegas Raiders. And the name of the game is move the chains. We
Mm,
don't care how you do it, Alex. It doesn't have to look pretty, but we need you to move the chains. And here in Denver, it just kind of bothered me the way that some of the fans and some of the media people kind of approach the situation. Say this team's
mm,
8-2.
yeah,
Why is it that individuals are a little upset? And the reason people are a little upset because when you look at this team and say, well, are they a for real 8-2 team?
right.
You really don't know because you just point to one area of the team and it's the defense. Usually when you look at an 8-2 team, you say, well, at least two of the three phases are playing well. The Broncos are not even running the ball well, not because the running backs are inept. It's just the fact that they don't get that many carries,
Yeah.
right? Like watching Trevion Henderson get the touches that he received, whether it was cross midfield or inside the red zone. Hell, I
Mhm.
got a little jealous, even I know from a fantasy standpoint, Drake May numbers were not what they needed to be, but you don't need them to be that, especially when you could turn around and hand the ball off and your running back can hit pay dirt. So for me, I'm a little jealous of teams who run the ball consistently, like the Rams, I'll say Seattle, like San Francisco. I mean, I even obviously throw the Patriots in there as well. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention Shane Steichen and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watching those teams incorporate their running backs, and I'm not just saying just handing it off, but the incorporation of them in every facet of the offense. I mean, as a Broncos fan, you have to be jealous of it.
I can imagine Jacoby Brissett with that hat back in the day with the Colts run the damn ball. I am contractually obligated, Nick. Andy Reid's record when coming out of the bye, this includes the postseason when the Chiefs would have a week off. It is
What, 22-4, something like that?
27-4 in his lengthy
Man,
coaching career.
it just
So,
seems like leading up to this game, that number still gets bigger and bigger. I thought it was 20-4, then it was 22. Now you're saying it's 27-4.
well,
By game time, it's gonna be
that
30
includes
and
the
4.
postseason as well. You know, like they had a
Yeah.
lot of first round buys in the playoffs, and but again, you could say that he's 27-5 coming out of the bye next year because Denver wins this Sunday, and it's still an impressive number for Andy Reid. He's got plenty more wins to spare. Let's wrap up the AFC West quickly here because I do want to get into the two juggernaut battles I think that are going to ultimately decide who the best in the NFC is through the first 11 weeks. But the Chargers going across the country to Jacksonville. You've got Herbert, you've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got two teams that do want to commit to running the football, but have had banged up personnel. And as good as the Chargers had looked, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers, absolutely tying up Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith and Nas with the way that their defense played. Jacksonville's, ability to take away the football on defense, I think plays well into an injury-riddled offensive line and a Chargers team that wants to commit to running the football, but has had no problems putting the ball on the turf. So, this game is closer than I think it is, and it's not just because Jacksonville has home field advantage. It's just that neither offense really stands out to me as, look, if either of them were fully complete, I think the Chargers on paper are best, but at the same time, like this Jags team has pulled themselves back up after getting pantsed, by the better teams like the other LA team, like the Rams, for example. Like the Jaguars seem to hang around and did not disappear or hang their hats on that upset win against the Chiefs.
Well, this is not the same Chargers team that we saw years ago that blew like a 20-something point lead against
Yep.
Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, when Joe Lombardi was the OC. This is a different team. They're learning to win games the hard way, and that's like sorta like San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan with guys
Yeah.
being down and move pieces into place and trying to motivate guys and get the best out of them. So as I look at this game, as a person who kind of lives in Denver, you would want the Jacksonville Jaguars and root for them to win this particular game because
Hmm.
the
Yeah, of
Chargers
course.
are already one game up on the Denver Broncos, and the Chargers have helped you a little by beating Kansas City to start out the season. But I'm still going to lean heavily towards Justin Herbert making
Yeah.
the most out of, I guess, spilled milk because even though his offensive line hasn't been that great, his ability to move around in the pocket has given him time. And if you were to look at each team's skill positions,
Mm.
I would still lean heavily towards the Chargers
Yeah, of
with
course.
Gaston, with Quentin Johnson, and Keenan Allen being those linchpins for that Chargers offense.
Aronde Gadsden, I mean, just an absolute revelation as well. If you think this Chargers team is different from the one that blew that playoff lead against the Jaguars, maybe this Jaguars team is more like that Chargers group, considering they got outscored 26-0 by D'Amico Ryans, the Houston Texans, this past week with Davis Mills because CJ Stroud hurt, and who better than Davis Mills to personify next man up?
Yeah, that was a great outcome, but it was a weird game because Who would
Did
have
you hear me?
thought?
I said next man up.
Yeah, yes, yes. I see what you did with that, but,
Di
hey, man, hey, we're born what anatomy we have, and we just try to make the most of it. But, hey, it's a positive. If he's diving forward for a 4th and 1 or goal line plunge, guess what? You might as well count it, baby. It's a touchdown. But what a hell of a comeback by the Texans over the Jags and your twin, Liam
Yeah,
Cohen. But you know what? This is a game, once again, I go back to the Chargers
yeah.
where I expect for them to have enough grit where they can win this game.
In the NFC, we'll wrap things up. It's a little running long because I just missed you so much, but we get look, the NFC West 7-2 Seattle and 7-2 LA Rams. We get the 6-3 Lions going to Philadelphia for Sunday Night Football. Which of these games do you think is more of an impact for the top of the NFC? I think I lean Seahawks Rams, but maybe AJ Brown has captured enough headlines that you want to start there.
No, I'm gonna lean heavily towards Seattle and the Rams
Okay.
because
Yep.
it's funny because
You
when you
talked about the commitment to the running game. Talk about your guy, Clint Kubiak.
well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the art of creativity, and it's interesting that when we look at just NFL conferences as a whole, you have to go to the NFC West to say, okay, well, they got 3 teams potentially, right? You look at the 49ers, you look at the Rams, and you look at the Seahawks, but you know what they all have in common? They all come from the same Mike Shanahan tree.
Yeah.
They all learned or coached with one another. So there's a lot of familiarity within the offense, and you have to think about there's a lot of competition.
Mhm.
Because watching Kyle Shanahan lose to Sean McVay and the joy that Sean McVay had on his face after losing on Thursday night to the San Francisco 49ers and Mac Jones earlier in the season, that was a little of redemption. And this is
Mhm.
a game where you have Matthew Stafford playing well, you have Sam Darnold playing well. So this could be a high scoring game, and something's got to give.
Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles have had themselves a time. AJ Brown criticizing the offense, saying it is unsustainable. I tend to agree with him, even though the way he necessarily delivered the message kind of gets in the way of what he actually said. He looked and saw how the Kansas City Chiefs offense sputtered all of last year. They still made it to the Super Bowl, and he's kind of feeling like, hey, the shoe's on the other foot now. The Detroit Lions, meanwhile, Dan Campbell. I mean, look, everyone can point to his opening press conference as a head coach and biting off kneecaps and whatever. But I mean, look, this guy cut his teeth, played and coached under your guy, Sean Payton, and he's been a capable play caller. And we saw that on full display, pulling the keys out of the ignition for John Morton, the previous play caller, getting Jamison Williams more involved, relying on running the ball more often, getting David Montgomery back into the mix. I mean, your opponent heavily plays into that. But against the Philadelphia Eagles, his emphasis on wanting to run the football comes squarely in the face of running up against, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and a sick Eagles defensive front with a secondary that allows them to send more guys to stop the run or rush the passer.
Well, no matter what teams are doing defensively, as far as the run, you can't abandon the run because now you're forcing your quarterback to play with one hand tied behind his back, but
Mhm.
also the OC, half his play sheet is now cut off because you don't want to run the freaking football. But this is a case where these are the things that you have to. And when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, regardless of Kevin Patullo and their offensive issues and AJ
Right.
Brown saying whatever he's saying, this is a team that I trust because they just won a Super Bowl and they beat Kansas City and they beat them convincingly. And they have a guy in Saquon Barkley who can tote the rock. He can catch the rock. And also, like you said, they have a vaulted defense that when they play together and everyone's healthy, it's hard to score points on this defense. So it makes for a very interesting game. And oh, by the way, we just saw one of my favorite games of all time, maybe not one of your favorites, the Monday Night Football game where it was like a baseball score, right?
Yes.
I love the defensive effort by both units, those fantasy owners and those individuals who love high scoring games. You
Yes.
didn't like this game at all, but hey, man,
We
it was
love commercial breaks. We love stoppages,
hey, hey,
touchdowns, field goals, cut to commercial break. That's why people watch the Super Bowl, Nick, for the
hey, listen,
commercials.
I was a kid in the candy store. I'm tired of all these offenses just racing up and down the field and the quarterbacks getting all the praise. It's about damn time we start talking about defense. I know it's not sexy, right? I know it's not sexy, but if you don't score, you can't win. So I don't know what Kevin Patullo is going to do this week, but they can't have that same Reaper performance this week against the Lions as they had against the Green Bay Packers.
Lane Johnson back at practice is huge for them. Cam Jurgens as well. Look, that entire team, not just the tush push, is predicated on the health and the play of that offensive line. Saquon Barkley, to me, looks like a guy that touched the ball 350 times last year, just a lot more sluggish and kind of, checked out of games when he can be. And look, they're just not looking for A.J. Brown in the passing offense whatsoever. So we're going to have to wait and see how they sort of get things right. We talked about this, right? They had 2 games against the Giants, opportunities for them to get right, look balanced on offense. And here we are a month later, and they still haven't really accomplished that. That said, they're in the driver's seat in the NFC. They get the home game against the Lions, whose defense has been porous itself. So this could be where the rubber meets the road, and we're looking at a playoff preview with these 4 teams, all vying to come in second place, the New England Patriots, who are going to obviously ripping up the Super Bowl. He's Nick Ferguson. I'm Alex Hardy. There's no other team to talk about because there's only one team so far in Week 11 that's 1-0. So until following Sunday Night Football, Monday night, we'll get a better sense of both the NFC standings and the AFC as well. And we come down the final third of the regular season. We are those guys. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts. We have our YouTube channel if you want to see the visuals. We also have YouTube Shorts if you just want to crush a bunch of Nick Ferguson catchphrases and breaking down tape, things like that. Also, Nick, your conversation with Master P is up on our YouTube channel as well. So make sure you check that out. I'm Alex Hardy. Nick Ferguson, before we get on out of here, what do you have to say to the people?
Cold milk is always better with the hot pastry.
Yeah, 1,000%. What's our alternative? Hot milk and a cold pastry? Uh-uh.
Yeah, I'm not British, so no, that's not gonna work.
No spotted tea, Nick.
No.